If the GDP contracts in Q3 and Q4, will you still say that this Apple deal was good due to tariffs? If the GDP contracts due to tariffs, will you go
I don't know what it's going to do. The GDP, the actual GDP is only about 1.5%.
It's a hypothetical.
It's not 3%.
If the GDP contracts due to tariffs, will you go back and say...
It's not 3%. We know that. It's 1.5%. Here's the problem, Adam. We didn't schedule enough time.
You can't answer, though.
I can.
Adam Mockler just walked into what could have been a hostile environment, the Steve Gruber show, after making a joke about the host's mom on Twitter. Gruber literally told his audience beforehand that Adam was going to try to mock me and attack me, that he's going to say insulting things, and that Adam's whole shtick is abusing people like me and making sport of us. But then something rare happened in political media. Two people from opposite sides actually talked to each other like human beings. No screaming, no personal attacks, just a genuine disagreement about economics and Trump's trade policies that ends with the host saying, "I was wrong about you." This video is fascinating not just for what was said, but for what it reveals about our expectations for political discourse. We've become so used to performative outrage and bad faith arguments that when someone just shows up to have a real conversation, it's shocking. I'm breaking down this debate moment by moment, including Adam's own self-critique, where he admits he could have gone harder on certain points. Because here's the thing, being civil doesn't mean being soft, and finding common ground doesn't mean compromising on truth.
Back to it now. My next guest is a Gen Z YouTuber contributor. He is an influencer, and he's got a big following. This thing called MeidasTouch. 2 million followers across platforms, like 1.5 million on YouTube. He gets to 50 to 60 million monthly views by generally abusing people like me and making sport of us, which, okay, it's a free speech platform. I like it. He was supposed to be here last week. He made it now because he had some travel issues last week. All fine and well. Adam Mockler, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate you taking the time to have me on a week after. I'm sorry about the communication breakdown last week. And I just want to preempt this by saying my shtick is not to abuse or mock people. That's not why I came here today. I want to talk about Trump's first 6 months for my generation compared to your generation.
Okay, fair enough. I appreciate that. And I actually think your generation is more conservative. I mean, and based on the voting patterns of 2024 November, you would find a lot, especially young men, people your age, young men your age, voted for Donald Trump in larger numbers than previous generations had. Is that fair to say?
It's fair to say, compared to previous generations, my generation did give Trump a shot. But if you look at the updated polling numbers, he's lost like 30% popularity just among my generation. And it's because people listened when he said he was going to lower prices. They gave him a fair shot. A lot of people in my generation are really worried about housing prices or long-term prices. Donald Trump has screwed that. He promised a bunch of deals in 90 days. He didn't get enough deals. He promised to lower the cost of housing. It seems like putting tariffs on lumber or Canadian lumber is the opposite of lowering the cost of housing. So now, if you look at the polls, you see that Gen Zers aren't as fond of his policies. There's a poll from Ipsos showing
you're right on that. And his popularity, and that happens to a lot of presidents. You're right. His numbers have come down some. There's no question about that. And for a variety of reasons, the honeymoon's over, if you will. But if I may, I thought we might get down this alley. Gasoline a year ago was $3.45 on average. Today it's $3.08. So it's cheaper. Eggs are down 23% from $3.17 to $2.46. Does that change a Gen Zer's life? No, but they are indicators that things are better in some areas. Mortgages are the same, 6.5%. Now, I think we could lower mortgages by way of the Fed and have some better efforts there from the central bank, but that's a discussion on the side. It hasn't happened. The market's over 44,000 for 165 million Americans, people in my generation. The market's important. The market is important. And I know you had that back and forth with Mr. Wonderful here recently, but the fact of the matter is the market being at 44,000 plus is important for people that have 401ks, your parents, your grandparents. If they're invested in the market, and many of them are, it's doing well. It's doing better. Plus, these deals with the United Kingdom, the European Union, Japan, South Korea, Vietnam, Indonesia, Philippines, China, all of them. These trade deals are important because I think it's fair to say America was on the wrong end of a lot of those deals for a very long time. Would you not agree?
Gruber makes an interesting point. Young men did vote for Trump in higher numbers than previous generations. But then Adam brings the crucial follow-up. Trump's lost about 30% of his support among Gen Z since taking office. This is the story that doesn't get told enough. Yes, young voters, especially young men, gave Trump a chance. They heard him promise lower prices, better economic conditions, and deals that would benefit America. But then they watched what actually happened. Tariffs that raised prices, economic uncertainty, erratic policy changes, and a lot of performative deals that don't actually help regular people. The honeymoon is over, and Gen Z is noticing. When you're young and trying to plan your future, thinking about buying a house, starting a career, maybe starting a family. Economic stability matters more than political theater. And Trump's first 6 months have been nothing if not theatrical, but not particularly stable.
I don't agree.
Why
No,
not?
I don't think a trade deficit is inherently bad at all. I think that Donald Trump has twisted reality to say that any trade deficit is bad, but a lot of these deals were mutually beneficial, or at the very least, you can shoot a phone call to South Korea and renegotiate a deal before declaring trade war on the globe. You don't have to declare trade war on the planet. And if you're going to like make the claim that Trump has had some intentional strategy when it comes to the tariffs, I'm not going to buy it. He's put them on Liberation Day, backed off on some of them, replaced some on. It seems more unpredictable than intentional, in my opinion.
Well, Donald Trump is a transactional individual. There's no question. It's transactional.
But
it always has been.
trade isn't transactional. Trade is transactional, but it's also mutually beneficial.
But
if
it
you
is
look at
beautiful.
trade through the lens,
When you see
if you
Tim
look at
Cook-
trade,
When you hold on, when you see Tim Cook come to the Oval Office and say, "I'm going to spend $600 billion," when the EU says they're going to spend $1.4 trillion in America, you see a new car plant in Indiana, a new car plant in Arizona, a new tech center for Apple in Detroit, Michigan. These are all wins, Adam. I mean, how can these not be considered wins?
all right, at this point in the debate, Steve tries to twist Donald Trump's economic extortion as some sort of win. He lists off all of these quote unquote investments Trump has procured while leaving out the $400 million bribe from Qatar in the form of a jet, while leaving out much of the corruption going on. And it misses the broader context. I mean, I wish I would have gone harder on this talking point in the moment, but sometimes all you can do is watch the tape back, critique yourself, and try to sharpen the blade or sharpen the points. But what I should have said in the short amount of time that we had is that this is pure corporate extortion. When you're saying that Trump is using the tools available, yeah, I could get a gun and go extort my neighbor and say that I'm using the tools available, but that is not how you do diplomacy. Donald Trump is securing these large investments, but they're all for show. Apple isn't changing the way it's manufacturing in the United States. I would bet money they are not going to be making iPhones in the United States. They are trying to appease Donald Trump and make it just until the next administration so their company isn't targeted by an absolute madman. So you can dress up all of the pressure and uncertainty and economic destruction as some sort of, win. But what you're doing is ruining America's image. And I try to make this argument, but we really run out of time quickly. So I'm going to let you watch till the end. But he's using tariffs as a lever to manipulate and bully people. The same thing with Qatar. You could say that he took this $400 million jet from Qatar because he's transactional and he loves America.
I'm going to agree with you. Hold on. I'm going to agree with you. I don't care about the jet. Let's back up to what you just said. The jet's a sideshow to me. But I agree with you. He does use the trade as a weapon, as a way to get what he wants. That's true. And you've gotten something like $10 trillion of investment earmarked for America. How is that bad?
That's not bad, but let me explain my argument.
So you agree? Hold on. There was an agreement there, Adam. I saw it. I heard it from you. There was an agreement there. All right, go on.
Of course I'm going to agree that deals are good, but the channels that Donald Trump is achieving these deals through are just absolute BS. Republicans will claim we're bringing in billions of dollars in tariff revenue, but they don't account for that tariff revenue coming from U.S. companies. We have multiple economic indicators lagging and slowing. The GDP contracted due to the tariffs. Inflation rose due to the tariffs. We can all agree that the GDP contracting is not a good thing. Yes, getting some peripheral deals are great, but at what cost? When we're putting tariffs on the entire globe, isolating allies, making new enemies, and you're going to say, oh, but Tim Cook was so scared he did a $600 million giveaway, billion dollar giveaway. I don't think that it's convincing. Is that a good deal? And compared to the long-term
putting a brand new tech center from Apple in Detroit, Michigan is a good deal.
If the GDP contracts in Q3 and Q4, will you still say that this Apple deal was good due to tariffs? If the GDP contracts due to tariffs,
I don't know what it's going to do. The GDP, the actual GDP is only about 1.5%.
It's hypothetical.
It's not
if the
3%.
GDP contracts due to tariffs, will you go back
3%,
and say,
we know that. It's 1.5%. Here's the problem, Adam. We didn't schedule enough time.
You can't answer, though.
I think you and I need more time because I'm up against the damn break already, and it's too bad because I think you and I can actually talk about some things. And you didn't come here and mock me, and I stand corrected. I was wrong about that. You actually want to have a conversation, and I appreciate that because I think we should. More conversations like this, maybe we'd understand each other better, and we'd figure some things out. I appreciate you being here. I'd love to have you back anytime.
Thank you.
How about that? There you go. Adam Mockler, everybody. I was wrong. I can admit when I'm wrong. I was wrong. He came in, was serious conversation. I'll be right back.
So what did we just watch? On the surface, it's a debate about tariffs and trade deals. but at a deeper level, it's a proof of concept for a different kind of political discourse. Adam walked into a potentially hostile environment, defied expectations by being respectful, engaged seriously with arguments he disagreed with, and walked away with the host admitting he was wrong about him. That's a blueprint for how to have productive conversations across political divides. But and this is important, being civil doesn't mean being a pushover. Adam still made his points forcefully. He still challenged Gruber's claims about trade deficits being inherently bad. He still pressed on whether these deals would matter if GDP contracts. He just did it without being an asshole about it. His self-critique is valuable too. He's right that he could have gone harder on the corporate extortion angle. When Gruber listed off all these investments, Adam could have hammered the point that these are protection payments, not genuine economic development. He could have brought up the Qatar jet more forcefully as an example of corruption, not deal-making. But here's the thing, you can always be harder in retrospect. Monday morning quarterbacking is easy. In the moment, with limited time and an opponent who's controlling the flow of conversation, you make the best arguments you can. And Adam's decision to prioritize building rapport over maximizing confrontation probably served him better in the long run. The economic arguments here matter. Trade deficits aren't inherently bad. Using tariffs as a weapon creates uncertainty and can trigger recessions. Forced investments aren't the same as genuine economic confidence. GDP growth matters more than symbolic deals. These are important points that more Americans need to understand. But the meta lesson here is about how we have these conversations in the first place. Steve Gruber expected a troll and got a serious person. He prepared for mockery and got respect. And that changed the entire dynamic of the conversation. Imagine if more political discourse worked this way. Imagine if we defaulted to assuming good faith from people we disagree with, at least until they prove otherwise. Imagine if admitting you were wrong about someone was seen as a strength rather than a weakness. We won't agree on everything. Gruber still thinks Trump's trade policy is working. Adam thinks it's destructive. That's fine, that's a genuine policy disagreement. But they found a way to have that disagreement without personal attacks, without strawmanning each other's positions, and without performative outrage. That's rare enough in 2025 that it's worth celebrating. And it's a reminder that despite all the incentives pushing us toward conflict and tribalism, civil discourse is still possible when both sides decide to prioritize understanding over winning. Adam did well here. He stayed composed, made solid arguments, and left the door open for future conversations. And Gruber, to his credit, recognized when someone was approaching him in good faith and responded in kind. What did you think of this debate? Do you agree with Adam's self-critique, or do you think he struck the right balance? Let me know in the comments below.